again, and welcome to another podcast from Cheat Code Fantasy Sports. Zach Green here with you, along with Cody Harvey. We're bringing you another podcast over PGA. This week is the Workday Charity Open. We also are going to recap our plays from the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And then we have a new thing for you this week where we, in addition to giving you outright bets, give you some head-to-heads as well as some tiers because I've been playing tiers the last couple of weeks, and it's been really great. So, as you know, there's no cheat code to winning fantasy sports. We offer our picks and our plays, and we combine it with bankroll management and contest selection to maximize your chances for winning. And we strive on being honest and open, and our reputation is out there on the line each week. So we try to be transparent. And you can join our Slack and get all of our content. All of our content for this week's PGA is already out there. Article, cheat sheets, models, player pools, exposures, things like that. You can find us on Twitter at DFS. And then you can find Cody at the Cody Harvey, or myself at OkiCowpoke14. And our website is still under construction, hopefully ready soon with all these other things going on. So before we get into our plays for this week, Cody, what are some of your, or how did we do last week on our podcast?
So I think we did pretty well overall with our podcast plays. I'm pretty happy with how my lines ended up. So cash plays that I pointed out last week were Doc Redman. So he finished at 89 DK points. That was good for over 10 times value, 10.5 times value. Lucas Glover finished at 89 DK points, so 10.6 value. Just had to one up Doc Redman that a little bit. And then Will Gordon, lower priced in the 7K. He ended up missing the cut. Scored 37 DK points. He started +3 after the first 3 holes of the tournament, and he just couldn't dig himself out. He was spraying the driver and getting himself into trouble. But keep an eye on Will Gordon. He'll be a name to watch out for coming up in the near future. How about you, Zach? How did your cash plays end up?
Yeah, my cash plays ended up pretty well. I know all week you and I kind of debated between Adam Hadwin and Doc Redman, and I ended up going with Hadwin, and he ended up with 113 DraftKings, 13.7 value. All of his rounds were under 70, so it was a great week for Hadwin. He was about 21% in GPPs. And then Terrell Hatton, he scored 112 DraftKings points, 10.5x value, 17% in GPP. Obviously, you needed Bryson DeChambeau to win GPPs, but Hatton was great for cash. And then Brian Stewart, he had 90 DraftKings points, 12x value, 13% in GPPs, and he did exactly what we wanted him to do at his price. And I think it was 7,400. So definitely did enough there. And then for we'll get into my GPPs here. Brennan Todd, he had 78.5 DraftKings points, about 10x value. It was 9% in GPPs. So decent value, not amazing, but didn't kill you either. Then Ricky Fowler, 92 DraftKings points, 9.7x value, about 10% in GPPs. I was maybe a week early on him, as we'll get into in a minute, but not quite what we wanted last week for his price for GPPs, but he's getting there. And then my last one, Kevin Na, historically he struggles with back injuries, and it bit him again this week. Withdrew in the middle of second round. He just had a bad round first round, and then decided in the second round it wasn't worth sticking around because he wasn't going to make the cut. And so he's like, I'm just going to go home early. So 12% in GPPs, and only ended up with 14 DraftKings points. So how did you do on your GPPs, Cody?
So my GPPs picks on the podcast last week were Tyrell Hatton, who you talked about 112 DK points, 10.5 times value. So he came through for me. Harold Varner the third, HV3, ended up with 78.5 DK points. So that was over 10 times value. Was really surprised at his ownership in cash. I like HV3 a lot. His games are really rounded into form, but I still think, at a course like Detroit, where there was such an emphasis on putting, that there was a little bit of risk there, but he ended up paying off. And my playing the 6K range that I really liked was Wesley Bryan. He ended up with 89 DK points, 13.7 times value. Came in pretty highly owned. I think he was talked up around the industry. I noticed we're always recording on Tuesday, and I'll do my research and put out my content before I do any other research and look at anyone else. So I saw that Wesley Bryan was talked about quite a bit across the industry, and it was the fourth round, that final round, where he was in the mix. Come Sunday, maybe it was fatigue because he is coming off that shoulder surgery. Maybe it was fatigue. I don't know. But glad to see Wesley Bryan do well. So that brings us to the first look for the Workday Charity Open. So the one and only Workday Charity Open that we will ever have, whoever wins this week, is going to go down in history as the winner of the Workday Charity Open. So we got a unique situation here. So it's playing at Muirfield Village in Dublin, Ohio. So that's in the Columbus area, and that's where Jack Nicklaus grew up. So this is Jack's place, Jack's tournament. So he wanted to give back to the area that he loved so much and really helped him grow as a golfer and, as a person. So we're here for the Workday Charity Open. It's replacing the John Deere Classic, which would normally be in this spot. But we're getting tournaments back to back at the same spot. So Memorial's next week. That's a massive tournament. So they're going to do some different things, use different tee boxes and pin placements. They're going to grow out the rough for next week, and also quicken up those greens. But the course, it's playing just under 7,400 yards. It's par 72. It's a really picturesque course. Like when you dream about a golf course, I always picture in my head Muirfield Village. It rewards strong iron play, and there's a really strong emphasis on approach as well. So there's wide fairways that are easy to hit, but this is a second shot course. So even if you land on the fairway, that doesn't mean you're going to have a good angle to attack the greens, which are smaller than average. And at Memorial, they have played faster than what they will play this week. We got water in play on about half of the holes, and nearly every hole is guarded by greenside bunkers. And the greens, they are going to be slower than what they normally roll at Memorial. And it sounds like they might be getting softer. So with that, I'll throw it to you for a first look at the weather.
Yeah. So this week is going to be one of the first weeks that we've had in a while that we may have some weather issues, and specifically with some rain. Temperatures in the mornings are going to be about the low 70s, and then the mid 90s in the afternoons, similar to pretty much the last 2 or 3 weeks. And then again, no wind. I was telling Cody the other day, I was looking at the weather for Thursday and literally had 2 miles an hour wind. So you don't have to worry about the wind being a factor. However, as of now, this is Tuesday night, 40% chance of rain on Thursday, 50% on Friday and Saturday, and 30% on Sunday. But this is going to be changing as we get closer. They kind of have to set these percentages out based on some forecast models that aren't as good farther out. As we get closer, they'll be able to zero in on specific locations that may be affected, and if Dublin will get affected. So just stay tuned in our Slack. We'll have updates tomorrow morning, tomorrow night, whenever, because the rain chances could affect especially Showdown. So that's pretty much it for the weather. Just remember to stay tuned for Slack. So Cody, as we get into this week, who are some of your outright picks for this week?
So the top of the board is Justin Thomas, but he doesn't really intrigue me, just because the price is so short. But I found some really good value down the board. So they're all priced in the same 70 to 1 range, and they're all priced around the same 7,000 range on DK as well. But my first one that I like is Cam Champ. So Cameron Champ is plus 7,000 or 70 to 1. He started off, came out of the break like gangbusters, 11th tee to green at Colonial, and then he followed it up. He ended up testing positive for COVID and wasn't able to tee up, and was a last minute replacement last week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and he comes in as literally the last man in, and it was 10th tee to green. So he's looks like he's found his consistency. He's a really good par 5 scorer, and that could make the difference in the tournament. That's how Cantley racked up most of his strokes last year. So he can score on the par 5s. The rest of the course plays tough. Again, we don't know how it's going to play because all of the data we're using is from Memorial. But if you can score on the par 5s, that should keep him in it. And like I mentioned in my article, which you can find in our Slack chat, and I'll make sure to send out on Twitter, before there was this cohort of Matthew Wolff and Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland, the next one was supposed to be Cam Champ. And then these 3 young guys come in, and Champ's kind of gone overlooked. So he's another one where keep an eye on him. If he's rounding into form, he's one to watch. And I think at plus 7,000, that's good value. Another one I like is Byung-Hun An, or Benny as I call him. So Ben An, if you guys out there don't follow him on Twitter, make sure you do. He is a really entertaining follow. He's also the subject of Sam Harrop's new golf tune. So you can check that out as well. I've retweeted it, so check out my Twitter feed. But Benny On, he was second in the playoff here in 2018. He's never finished outside the top 25 in his 4 trips, and he can win without having to putt well. This tournament, you don't have to be a good putter to win it. Hideki's won when he lost strokes putting. Jason Duffner's won when he lost strokes putting. Even Tiger Woods, the last Tiger Woods victory, he was just barely in the positive for strokes gained putting. So that brings a lot of guys into play, and Benny On is one of them. So lastly, I'm going to go back to the well, even longer price than what we got last week, but I'll be clicking on Harold Varner III, or HV3. He comes in at plus 7,500. So I'll talk more about HV3 a little later on in the podcast. He's got a stellar tee to green game. He's just dialed in right now, but his weakness is his putting. This course is going to bring a lot of those golfers that aren't the greatest putters but are good ball strikers. They're going to give him a chance to win, and this could be where HV3 finally breaks through this year. So who do you like on the outright market, Zach?
Yeah, those are all good plays that you have there. And my first one is Mark Leishman at plus 4,000. He's 58th in my model. He's first in the strokes gained approach, and then he's 6th in approach within 200 yards. For the last 5 times that he's played Memorial, he's finished top 15 with 2 of them top 5s. And so I may even like him for some GPPs as well. But if he can get hot, he can win this tournament. The next one is Corey Connors, plus 8,000. He's 21st in my model, 7th in ball striking, 2nd in greens and regulation, 18th in strokes gained approach. He has 2 top 20 and a miscut since the break. Putting is a weak spot, but if he can get hot putter like Wolff did last week, he could be in contention on Sunday. And then last one is Ricky Fowler, plus 4,000. I liked him last week, going right back here. He likes playing at this course, top 15 finishes each of the last 3 years at Memorial. And he looked better last week. He had plus 1.22 strokes tee to green last week. So he could build on last week's performance with an even better performance this week. So now we get into our next, our newest portion of the head-to-head bets. So who do you like, Cody, this week?
So I forgot to mention for the outright parts, but for my book, I'm in Canada, for those of you who don't know. So shout out to your Corey Connors play. But I use Bet365 for my book. So the prices and the matchups are going to change from book to book. So what I got is on Bet365. Zach's got different matchups that he's got. If you want advice on what matchups to play, hit us up in our Slack chat or send us a DM on Twitter and send us a screenshot of what book you're using so we've got an idea and we can help you out. Also, the model has been really helpful for head-to-head bets and tiers like Zach had mentioned earlier, and we'll get into that later. So using the model for these head-to-head matchups has been really helpful as well. So the first matchup that I'm looking at is another Canadian boy, Adam Hadwin, plus 100 versus Sungjae Im. So Im finished T10 at Colonial, and since then he's missed the cut, gone T58, and then T53 last week. So something's not right with Sungjae's game. On the flip side of that coin, Adam Hadwin was T4 last week, and he's got an all-around game that should fit really well with how Muirfield is set up for this week. So not only is he trending in the right direction when Im is not, but we're also getting him at plus money. So I like that Adam Hadwin bet. Second one is Justin Thomas, JT at minus 125 versus John Rahm. So as much as I'm expecting JT to bounce back from his missed cut, this is more about John Rahm and where his game's at. So he missed the cut at Colonial in his first trip out since the restart. It was T33 at RBC Heritage and T37 at the Travelers. He was in the field at Memorial here in 2017 where he missed the cut. And JT, if we exclude his miscut last year, which was one of the first tournaments after he injured his wrist at the Honda Classic, he had a top 5 in 2017 and a top 10 in 2018. And JT is one of those types. He's mentally strong. He's going to bounce back from his down performance last week. So, who do you like for your head-to-head bets?
Yeah. First one is Maverick McNeely, plus 100 versus Mark Hubbard. McNeely's been playing really great lately. And then Hubbard, I think this is kind of an overreaction from last week by the books. I think he finished 8th last week, but before that, since we've come back from the break, he hasn't finished above 30th. And McNeil, in my model, is 23rd, and Hubbard is 26th. And I kind of like McNeely as well for DFS as well this week. So I think that one's just a little off. And then another thing I forgot to mention with Cody talking about, our books and how they're different, what's offered and all that. But also you have to keep in mind that numbers like the plus 100 and then even on outrights are when we take them Tuesday night. So if you are watching this Thursday morning really early before the tournament, you might get different odds. Shouldn't change much, but it may change a little bit. And then my next one is Adam Hadwin, plus 105 versus Matthew Fitzpatrick. Hadwin is 3rd on my model. Loved him last week. I think he's going to do great again this week. Fitzpatrick comes in 53rd on my model. And Hadwin's played here 6 times versus Fitzpatrick's only played here 1 time. And Hadwin had 11th place finish here. And so, like I said, I love Hadwin also for DFS this week. So now let's get into the cash plays for this week. Who are you liking for cash this week?
So for cash, I'm going to just gravitate towards a more balanced build. So I think for my my main cash line, I'm going to be starting Victor Hovland. So Victor Hovland comes in on DraftKings at 9,500, FanDuel at 10,900, and Yahoo at $40 even. So the past two tournaments, he's number one overall in shots gained tee to green. So in his last three starts, he's averaging 99 DK points. And he's made all four cuts, since the restart. So Victor Hovland has that nice mix of upside plus consistency, and his game. Honestly, I was looking at the ownership projections, and Hovland's going to be chalky, which is totally fine to start cash lineup around. So our projections, shout out to Thomas Kelly, who does our cheat code projections, has him coming in at 19.5% owned. So second one I like for cash, we talked about him already, good old Canadian boy, Adam Hadwin. So he's only 8,200 on DraftKings, 9,900 on FanDuel, and 34 on Yahoo. Hadwin's just got a solid all-around game. So he's 30th in shots gained tee to green on the season, but he was 9th last week at Detroit. And he's made 3 of 3 cuts since the restart. So lastly, it really hurts my heart to play this guy in cash. But I didn't want to end up, Zach and I ended up on quite a few of the same plays, but I wanted to, not give you guys a bunch of the same stuff over and over and over again, but, a different perspective and some different options for your lineups. So can't believe I'm going to do this, but the last guy from my cash line is Emiliano Grillo. So Grillo's 7,200 on DraftKings, 8,700 on FanDuel, and 25 on Yahoo. He's missed the first two cuts after the break, but he's made the last two. He likes it at Muirfield Village. He's made 4 cuts, and he finished in the top 10 last year. He's 13th in shots gained approach. He's one of the best ball strikers on tour. The problem is his putting. So this, again, there's kind of an overarching theme with, all of my plays. It's guys that are good ball strikers that are going to get themselves in position that can take advantage of the slower greens that are going to be running slower than they normally will, plus will be softened up with the weather. So that being said, Zach, who are you liking for cash this week?
First one I like is Gary Woodland. He's 8,300 on DraftKings, 9,900 on FanDuel, and $41 on Yahoo. But he comes in number one on my model for the course, number one in ball striking, number 10 in strokes gained approach, number 10 in birdie bogey ratio. And he had a week off after the missed cut at Travelers. So, I had a little time to work on things. And he's made 7 of 9 cuts on this course. So all of that leads me to believe he's going to have a rebound this week. The next one is Cam Champ, 7,700 on DraftKings, 9,600 on FanDuel, $32 on Yahoo. Number 14 in my model, he's 21st in ball striking, 30th in greens and regulation, and 11th in birdie or better. He's probably one of those that may be just a little bit riskier for cash. As you know, I kind of prefer cash plays on a little bit of risk on 1 or 2 guys. But Champ's been really impressive since the break. We talked about it. He came in 12th last week, even though he was not even expecting to play that tournament. Just looked really well. And he was 14th at Colonial as well. So he's been playing well since the break. And then my last one for cash is Patrick Cantley. DraftKings 10,600, FanDuel 11,700, and then Yahoo $47. He comes in second on my model. He's second in ball striking, 4th in green and regulation, and 5th in strokes gained approach. Of course, he won the tournament at Memorial last year, and he was 4th the year before that. He was 11th in his first tournament back after the break at Travelers, and he's $500 less than Justin Thomas, who's going to be the popular play despite him missing the cut at Travelers. And then Cantley, I played him in cash at Travelers, and it looked like he didn't even miss a beat from being off of the break. So those are my cash plays. And who are you liking for GPPs, Cody?
So before I get into my plays, I just want to mention, Patrick Cantley is guy's amazing. He's the best golfer that nobody knows about, and he I always look back, not just looking back to the last week, so all of my picks, all my plays from my article and the model and the podcast, they'll go in my recap article that's out every Monday after the tournament. I pulled up my article from last year, and first name that popped up was Patrick Cantley. And of course, he proved to be a good play, winning the whole thing and everything. But it's just amazing how underrated he is. I don't think people have had enough opportunity to see how good he is. So I can imagine, if he went back to back, I wouldn't be surprised. It's probably not going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. So my GPP picks. First one is in that 10,000 and up tier. He's projected to be the lowest owned right now, and that's Brooks Koepka. So DraftKings, he's at 10,400, FanDuel 11,500, and $47 on Yahoo. If he's going to be the lowest owned in that top tier, I'm going to take a shot at Brooks. He looks healthy. He's an elite talent, and if we're getting him at a discounted price and discounted ownership, I'm going to take a shot. So last tournament he was in was the RBC Heritage. He was 9th in shots gained tee to green, and he's finally getting that putter going. So this could be the week where everything just kind of meshes. But again, I'm stunned of all the plays in the 10K and up range if Brooks is coming in the lowest owned. Second GPP play I really like is Joaquin Niemann. So on DK, he's 8,400. FanDuel, he's 10,000 even. And Yahoo, he's $38. He was first in shots gained tee to green at the Heritage and 18th at the Travelers. Again, part of going with the theme, he's just not a good putter. If you're looking for tee to green game, he's spectacular. As soon as he gets on the green, that's where his game needs work. So this could be the great equalizer this course. He likes it here. He had a good finish here in 2018 where he finished T6. So lastly, talked about him already, but I'll be going with HV3. So he's only 7,500 on DraftKings, 9,200 on FanDuel, and $29 on Yahoo. So he did miss the cut at RBC Heritage, but he's been outstanding since the restart tee to green. He was 4th at Colonial, 12th at TPC River Highlands, and 5th last week at Detroit. So he ranks really highly on the season, ranking 14th in shots gained tee to green. He's also 24th in approach. So we know it's that all-round game. Again, if he can sink a few putts, he's going to be in the mix come Sunday. So you've got some really good GPP picks yourself. Who are you liking this week?
First one, we already mentioned before, and we mentioned last week too, but Ricky Fowler. DraftKings 9,000, FanDuel 10,700, and then Yahoo $40. But he comes in 16th on my model. As we talked about, he looked better last week, but I still kind of want to wait another week before I start trusting him in cash games again, especially with some of the plays like Hadwin and Woodland and some of those that are cheaper right now. The last 3 years of Memorial, Fowler's finished in the top 15. He's 50th in ball striking. And the reason I like him here is because he's a player with a great upside at a cheaper price. And, most of the ownership is going to go towards Morikawa at $200 more or $500 more with Hovland. As Cody already mentioned, he's going to be Hovland is one of the highest owned players this week. And so Ricky's a great golfer. He struggled a little bit coming into the break and coming out of the break. but he looked better last week, and he fits this course well. And then the next one is Scotty Scheffler. He's 7,800 on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel, and $37 on Yahoo. 20th on my model. He's 28th in ball striking. He's 10th in birdie or better percentage, and 3rd in par 4 birdie or better. And another reason I like him is the recency bias should keep his ownership down because he's missed 2 straight cuts. But one thing that's a positive, last week he shot +7 in round 1, which is awful. And most people would just give up. Some people might just withdraw, especially knowing that the cut is going to be around -5, so you have to shoot an insane score just to make the cut. But he came back in round 2 and shot a -7. So he wasn't giving up. He was trying to work on his game some more. And so I think that's going to give him a little bit of confidence going into this week. And he's not going to have any ownership despite the price drop. I think he has 9,000 last week, so it's about $1,200 cheaper. And then my last one is Henrik Norlander. He's 6,500 on DraftKings, 8,000 on FanDuel, $20 on Yahoo, and his price went down as well. He's been playing some great golf. He's 51st in my model, 35th in ball striking, and he's cheap, under 7,000. So he lets you get in. Like if you want to play Cantley and Hovland together, you can do that with a play like that. Last week, he finished 12th. He gained over 2 strokes on approach last week. He was the highest number in the field. And then his tee to green, he gained over 2 strokes as well. Second only to Hovland. So he's been playing really well. And his ownership, it might be a little bit higher because he's been playing well, but I still like him. And then this week before we end, we just wanted to start by giving you a little bit of action for tiers. So tiers, if you don't know what it is, it's similar to, the regular style, but there's no salary. So like you get three guys in one tier, and another tier might have 9 guys. Just depends on what. If you have 6 tiers, you pick up golfer for each tier. Just who you think is going to do the best in that tier. And I've been using just the Cody's cheat sheet and the models, and it's been working really well. But because it's already kind of a reduced player pool, we only want to give you 3 of the players for GPP that we like. Cash, you can pretty much figure out based on the guys we like already we mentioned. So here are 3 guys that they're not really, I wouldn't say like locks or anything like that. They're 3 guys that I think in tiers will be low owned in GPP and get you to the top. So the first one is in tier 3 is Mark Leishman. As I talked about already, I kind of like him. And the good thing about this is for tiers, he's going to be low owned because this tier is loaded with so many other players. I think Morikawa, Im, and some other ones like that. And so he's best in the PGA at strokes gained approach, which is an important stat for this course. And then for the last 5 years, he's finished in the top 15 at Memorial. And so I like him here as a GPP option. And then in tier 4, as we already mentioned several times, but I like Ricky Fowler. And I'm hoping that in this tier for GPPs, the ownership goes to Reed and Hadwin. Hadwin's a great cash play, but other than last week, he doesn't really have the upside of top 10, top 15 for GPPs. And he might prove me wrong, but I think it's worth a chance on Fowler because he's one of my favorite golfers for this tournament, and he has great course history with a 2nd, 8th, 14th in his last 3 trips here. And then the last one is Maverick.
I just need to interrupt for a sec. Zach, hold on one sec. Where did Fowler go to school?
Oklahoma State.
Which college? Oh, okay. Sorry, carry on.
The last one in 3-6 is Maverick McNeely. So this tier, they kind of put like, I wouldn't say the bad golfers, but kind of like, because it's 1-6, so like the highest ones are in the 1 and so on. So this one is usually left wide open because they give you more options and everything. But I think this week people are going to be chasing Harold Varner III here. Like I said, it's a great option, but we're looking in tiers. I'm just looking for that 1 or 2 low-owned guys to help you in GPPs. McNeely's 23rd on my model. He's 14th in strokes gained putting, 11th in scrambling, which might have to happen here with as many hazards that there are. And he's made every cut since the break, and he finished 8th last week. The only downside that I can see is it is his first time playing at this course, and so I didn't include him in my I was looking at him as one of my options for GPPs for the podcast, but I didn't provide that because of it being his first time here. So, like Cody said, if you have questions on bets or weather or peers or how to read the models, anything like that, just hit us up in Slack. I want to mention, Thomas, Cody already talked about. Thomas Kelly does our ownership projections. He also does point projections. Aaron Marga does our NFL. Aaron Buss helps with college. Jake and Luke Altmaier help with NASCAR. And then Phil Beneteau does NBA and NFL. Our Slack is free right now for everything that we do. The link is in below. You can find us on Twitter if you have any questions. Cody, what do you have you have anything that you want to mention before we end up?
Yeah, a couple things. So Phil is kind of like our Swiss Army knife. He does MMA as well, and there's a Millionaire Maker this weekend for the UFC Fight Island. So make sure you jump in our Slack for that. We've got people that are sharing rundowns already. Jake and Luke Altmaier, NASCAR is running out every week, and they do a great job. Thomas Kelly just kills it on the daily. Every time he's pumping out content, it's just top notch. Still don't have a sponsor for the podcast, so I'm rocking the Puma Golf again. They still haven't reached out to me. I don't know, maybe they lost my email or something. Make sure you click on our link to get in our free Slack chat. Ton of value there. That's where all of our content is. And you can get some interaction going with Zach, myself, Thomas, the other guys. You're watching this on YouTube, so make sure you like this and subscribe so you'll get all of our new videos, which we're going to be ramping up. New videos, websites really close to going live, and we're just going to keep doing what we do and giving you guys a ton of free, valuable content to help you win some money.
All right.
Did I miss anything?
Another thing is I'm, as you can see, not at home this week. Had to come to Oklahoma for a family funeral. So just bear with the connection. I think it went in and out sometimes. But we still wanted to, that's how dedicated we are. We wanted to still provide the podcast this week, even though we had to fight bad cell phones coverage, bad internet service. So we want to thank you again for joining us and just hit us up in our Slack chat. Thanks again, Cody.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.